Hi. Last September, I think it was, possibly September the 20th, I did 2 features from Busey Street there. One was about the demolition of a block of flats that had been there for ages, and the other was about college open days. And the main thing I showed was Chalking's art by Regents Park College, advertising its open day. I also briefly mentioned that St Hugh's were also putting up chalkings, and one of them said, "We have swans." Well, judging by this, St Hugh's still has swans, which is good to know, I suppose. Regents Park has also done another chalking, and they have tortoises. Now, you compare this chalking with the one last September and tell me which you think is better. Tortoise ahead. Beware tortoise. This is a very tiny tortoise, it would appear. That's obviously another tortoise, or a croissant. More tortoise. Park the up. No, hang on, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I think you're supposed to read it from this end. Up the park. That's better. Oxford's best kept secret. Well, not quite as best kept had there been as it would have been if there were more rain. I'm not sure what part the cornflakes play here. Maybe they have cornflakes and milk for breakfast. Or possibly fish, because that looks like a fish on a grill. On the other hand, there have been saints who one notices on griddles, and generally they were martyred. So maybe this is a fish that's been martyred or turned into a saint. Or I don't think my theology is up to this. More cornflakes. Notice they come in pairs, a big cornflake accompanied by a baby cornflake. And that's the end. And just for completeness, this is where the block of flats was. Maylarch, who were doing the demolition, told me that it would take about 15 weeks to demolish and 2 years to replace. Well, they've had about 6 months of those years already. 6 months of those years already. And I'll just mention that Oxford has a bit of an obsession with tortoises. In one of my videos, which would have been about 5 weeks ago, one Sunday, I passed some heavies outside Corpus Christi College in the little cobbled street that last year I filmed the filming of Young Sherlock in. And I'm pretty sure they were guarding entrance to the Corpus Christi tortoise race. And it may seem rather odd that Oxford undergraduates hold a tortoise race, but they do. And it's not actually quite as odd as the Merton Times ceremony, which I'll talk about sometime. And the Corpus Christi tortoise race takes place once a year on Sunday of the 6th week of term. And I haven't been for quite a few years, and it's possible that animal rights legislation means that they can't use real tortoises anymore, or maybe they have to drug them before they race them or something, but they did used to use real tortoises. Sometimes the tortoises were dead. I remember one year when they actually had a tortoise that was called Dead, and because it was dead they dragged it along on a piece of string, and the tortoise race poet laureate wrote an ode to it. The tortoise race raises money for charity, and I don't think it's about tortoise sanctuaries or anything like that. I think the charity goes to people rather than tortoises, but in any case, Corpus Christi does have a tortoise race, and it seems that Regents Park has a similar love of tortoises, in fact possibly more, since there's no mention here of racing them. Okay, so this is me in Pusey Street at 7:10, comparing Regents Park's current Oxford Open Day advertising with last autumn's. See you next time.